Welcome to The Real Deal, where we get real about what it takes to succeed. Whether it's wealth, health, relationships, or finding your purpose, we talk to the masters to uncover the secrets to defying the odds and creating your own rock star legacy. I'm Doug, and after working on multiple Grammy-winning records as an author, transformational speaker, and your personal translightenment coach, I'm committed to your growth and success. And now, here's the real deal. Welcome, everyone, to The Real Deal on Success. So, allow me to introduce my friend, Cesar Espino. He was born in Mexico City and as a kid was born into a corrupted society, into a poor family, and to just one parent, his mom. And at the age of 4, Cesar had to start working at 4, gang, to start working to survive financially. He migrated here to the States at the age of 10 for the second time. We're going to learn about this. And through his teens, faced some many obstacles. One was acceptance. Being accepted by others is a need, as we know, but it goes far deeper than that, doesn't it? Another was having another child at the age of 16. And then in his early 20s, had many more challenges, and one of these bad decisions led him to end up in jail for anger issues. His life's been a roller coaster between success and down points. We all know about that. He has an MBA, worked in corporate America, and has had really great jobs, yet as he got older, he felt there was much more for him. And if you're like all of us, we all have something deeper inside to bring out, and we'll discuss this, of course. And he felt so there was so much more for him and decided to take that leap of faith and jumped into becoming a full-time entrepreneur. He's now a #1 best-selling international published author, a co-author, real estate investor, business coach and consultant, and an NLP practitioner like myself. Cesar's passion now is to share his story to empower, inspire, and aspire others. And he does this through his messages, through his stories, his books, his mentoring, and all of his other offers. So, with that being said, welcome, Cesar Espino.
Welcome, Doug. Man, I gotta tell you, that's the best introduction I've ever gotten. I think that's it.
All day. Okay.
You're awesome, man.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's catch up. Tell me your story. I mean, this is pretty impressive. Very few people can share their situation that they were working at such a young age. And what exactly does that mean? I mean, how does one find an opportunity at 4?
Right, exactly. I don't know if it was an opportunity or it was more of the society and just kind of forcing you to do that. Nevertheless, I always talk about the idea of who I am now is because who I was in the past, right? And as you mentioned, I was born in Mexico City. And I only was born to just one parent. I never met my biological father. Do not know his name. I don't know anything about him. Don't even care at this point, and that's fine. Except growing up as a kid, my family was poor. We didn't really have anything to show for. And, it was my mom, my mom's mom, my grandma, my older brother, and myself. And we all lived in this place, what I call home, which was literally a 250 square foot room, I guess. And it was made out of plywood, sheet metal, no electricity, no water, and just on the dirt. Yet we call it home. And I guess one of my first turning points or what forced me to get into working is that 4 months right after I turned 4, my mom decided to take her own leap of faith by coming to the States so that she can give us a better life. Because we didn't have anything, right? And nevertheless, she left. At that time, I didn't understand why. And, to a kid, you're like, what did I do? Why is my mom leaving?
Left you in
Mexico?
Exactly. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. She left in Mexico. And so you're thinking like, what did I do? What did I do something wrong? And so nevertheless, she left Mexico, and it was just my mom, my grandma, and my older brother. And we stayed behind. Well, because of that, we were forced to start working to make some money, right? I was not like a normal kid. And what I mean by that is I didn't have the luxury of going to school, coming out of school, playing with the kids or doing any of that stuff.
Mm.
My grandmother was very firm on education. So she wanted us to go to school, except we come from school, we did our homework, we ate whatever we had to eat, and then we had to work. We used to sell donuts and bread and a bunch of other things at the flea market for several years. And we didn't do too good on that, I said, and we graduated. And then we ended up getting a sewing machine. So I know how to sew clothes. So if you ever need something for Halloween, let me know. I'm sure I can put something together.
Do you still to this day sew?
No. I you know what? The last time I did, I did something for a friend of mine, maybe about 5 years ago, a little bit more, maybe 6 years ago. I actually did 2 adult Halloween costumes, and they came out pretty good. Pocahontas and Princess Jasmine, and it actually came out pretty good. So I guess I still have some skills.
Yeah.
So we're doing sewing. So my brother, my grandmother, myself, we all had our own sewing machine, and so we were doing that at an early age. And I remember there was times that I didn't want to do it. I wanted to go out and play with kids, and one time I did go out and play with kids. And my grandmother went out and pulled me and brought me in and started, hitting me with the belt, like, get back to work kind of thing. Again, I get it, though. I understand why, right? We didn't have that option. We didn't have the luxury. There was days we didn't have anything to eat. And I said we had the Mexican specialty dish, which was a tortilla with a grain of salt. That's all we had.
Wow.
And, we did that for all my childhood. I didn't have a childhood. It wasn't until the age of 7, my mom sent for us to come to the States, and we came to the States. Definitely, we came illegally. We crossed the border, and that's the whole story, and that is in my book. And we went through that, and we just came here for 2 months, like literally for 2 months. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why go through all that trouble?
Did you know you were only going for 2 months?
Huh?
Did you know at the time you were only going to go for 2 months, or?
I did. I just didn't think that she was going to follow through. Right. And I think, I don't know all the logistics of why that happened. It was like that fairy tale storytelling where one day you have everything and the next day you wake up and now you're back, heading back to your home country and doing the same thing all over again.
Right.
That happened. We went back and, reality sank in and we're doing the same thing. And then finally at the age of 10, she actually came to the States. She came from the States to Mexico. By then she already had her legal status in the United States. So she was able to leave the country. And this time she's like, I'm here for you guys. We're not coming back. And at that time I didn't believe it. I'm like, we went through this, 3 years ago when I was 7. I don't believe it. Yet we did. And again, that was a different story. It took about just roughly about 2 to 3 weeks to cross the border. There was a lot of crap happening in the way, things that I didn't perceive seeing. It's funny, and the only thing I can say is that the people that quote unquote supposed to protect you, that bring you from one place to another, in Mexico they call them coyotes or human smugglers. They're supposed to protect you, were the same people that were hurting the people that were passing over. Luckily, nothing happened to us yet. I saw so many different things, and it's crazy to see that. It's crazy to see how a lot of people are trying to find that American dream and are trying to go through that. And again, people just take advantage of the situation. Nevertheless, it took us 3 weeks to cross the border, and I was here at the age of 10. And I remember having some ideas and kind of going to the mind where, like, I felt like I was out of place. I couldn't speak the language. I have no friends. I couldn't understand. For the first time in my life, I was in a place where there were more than just Mexicans. There was all these different societies or nationalities, and I couldn't understand that.
Where did you guys land? Where were you living?
Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah, Los Angeles, and I've been here since then. And so, I just didn't fit in. And so at that time, the person that I see as my dad, who's my stepdad, I remember getting into a fight with him, and I'm like, you know what? You cannot tell me what to do. You're not my father. I don't want to be here. I don't belong here.
And
here's my first lesson at that moment, I think. And I'm glad they didn't send me back when I asked them to send me back. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Except they didn't send me back. And then at that point, I realized that I had to surrender. I had to surrender to the process. I had to surrender that this was going to be my new reality. Not surrender to give up. Surrender to accept the fact that I have to adjust to this new lifestyle. That I can either be miserable or I can try to fit in or do what I need to do to be part of this new community, this great nation. And so I did. At the age of 10, I surrendered. I was getting in trouble a lot, by the way. I was in elementary, middle school, I was fighting, doing so many different things just because I was so angry.
Yeah.
And finally, I surrendered. And within 2 years of being in the States, I was in the top of my academics. I learned the language. I was doing really good. And I chose the path of success versus the path of drugs or gangs, because I saw a lot of that in high school and middle school. And so I went through all of that.
Did you have any friends that decided to go down that path?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, how did you deal with, because when you talk about acceptance, and we see this a lot in, especially what's going on now with the like, it's even more polarized. Like, you got to pick a side, right? It's getting really crazy in that sense. But here we are adults, and we can intellectualize it, and we can see it from a different angle. When you were 10, 12, 14, and you saw your friends going down a path that you could have very easily gone down and felt love and felt connected and certainly been accepted.
Right.
But the sacrifice it would have made, like, what was that inside you? Because that's a unique thing at that age. That's why people get sucked into it, because they just want to feel part of something.
Yeah.
How did you get that, like, that distinction and keep that leverage so that you were able to stay going down a path of that success, doing the right thing, as opposed to, going to the other thing? Sorry, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. That's actually a good question. And you're right. We as people, we're always looking for that acceptance. And, as you know, I also have a podcast, and talking to different people. One of the things that I come across a lot, certain people get into negative influences or gangs or things of that nature because they're missing that, or they're lacking that acceptance at home, or they're trying to be part of a community. For me, growing up, I was very united with my older brother and my grandmother. Again, after my mom left us, it was really the three of us, and it was really the three of us making it or not making it, right? And so obviously my brother was here, so I was very close to my brother from the time that I got here to about, I would say, 12 to 13 years. We were very close, and so that was my go-to, right? And it was kind of like my connection in that level. My grandmother was on and off, coming and going, yet I still had that connection. And then my parents, they care for me, although just like any typical, I guess Hispanic or even American family, they're working all the time, right? They're trying to provide for you. So you miss that. And I think that's where you have that missing link. And so for the first couple of years, I was very connected with my brother. We'll walk together to school and come back and all that stuff. So I had that. It wasn't until after the fact that he ended up getting a scholarship to attend one of the top high schools in the U.S. and moved to Minnesota. And then I felt like I lost my best friend. And it's funny because there's a lot of things that have come up, and we'll get to this in a second. Yet there's a lot of things that have come up the last 2-3 years that I didn't see until literally 2-3 years, because of the fact that how I was wired as a kid, the abandonment, that NLP aspect that we're talking about. And I realized that although my brother had nothing to do with it, he was my best friend, yet he left. Mm-hmm. And I even talked to him about it. And sure enough, that came and brought some emotions. When that happened, I was still very involved with school. And at that point, I was very involved with school. Don't get me wrong. I was hanging around with people sometimes that they were trying to cause trouble, yet I didn't want to be part of that. At one point, I was with a group of people and they were tagging. I'm like, this is not for me. And I can see them tagging. And I'm like, I pick up the pen and I was like, should I tag too? And I'm like, no, that's not for me. A second time I was playing basketball with somebody, and then there's like this gang that wanted to fight. And then my friend pulled up his backpack and he gets a big old knife. And I'm like, I don't want part of this. And so I ended up going into the other direction. Yet there was a lot of influences. There was a lot of those things where, no, this is, trying to bring you in, like that magnet, trying to pull you in. You got to be able to choose. And I learned this now, more so now. The choices and the decisions that we make today will determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow. Definitely, I made a lot of choices and decisions that took me on that path of roller coaster. Yet I also learned a lot of things from that. And just like anything that we go through our past, is it's a education, it's a lesson. We have to be able to extract those lessons and understand what can I learn from this experience. And so I did a lot of that throughout my years.
That's amazing, because as you see children who their deepest need is that connection, you're offering such a light to other young men and women who may be a little confused about what to do. They're seeing a lot of opportunity to go down a path that may not be sustainable, but it's like addiction. It's like getting that high of being accepted and that rush and all of that, yet it's going to have long-term impacts. So, on behalf of the universe, and God, thank you for sharing your story and not going down that path. So when was it that you decided to, embrace entrepreneurship and talk about that roller coaster of, obviously you went down a path to get a job and then decided that wasn't for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think, looking back now, I think I always have that mind of, I am an entrepreneur. I am this person. I was not born to just do the 9 to 5 and be another body in this universe. I felt like, looking back, I feel like, there's more for me. And it wasn't into my late 30s that I realized that, there's something bigger and better for me that I have to go through. Even though I had a really good job, I was traveling all over the place. I had all these things taken care of for me.
What was the gig?
I was working for a logistics company in their corporate office, and I was in charge of all of their project management, analytics, and also their marketing. And so I was doing a lot of that stuff, and I was going all over, the U.S. and internationally for some of the locations. And so it was good, I remember one of my very first trips. I think it was back in 2005 in one of the companies I went to Canada as a business trip. I'm like, I was 25. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I'm 25 and I have an all pay expenses to a new country that I never been to. That was awesome. Then I get a paid trip to Budapest. And I was like, that's awesome. And so again, it was like that lifestyle. I'm like, I love it. Yet I realized there was something bigger and greater for me. And I said, I have to take that leap of faith. Funny though, it took me 7 months to be able to leave my job. The day that I said I was going to go give my 2 weeks, I got cold feet. I was afraid. I was fearful. And through that, I lost a lot of different things, people, relationships, all these different things, because I was trying to find myself. And I was just so afraid.
Through that, during that seven months of trying to figure it out, it impacted those other areas of your life as well.
It did. I mean, I had already started my side business in real estate a couple of years back. So I was doing the real estate on the side. Plus I was doing my corporate job. And, there was a lot of moments of tension and there was just so many different things happening that I ended up losing a 10-year relationship, which I know I could have saved. Yet I didn't save for whatever reason. And through that, I was trying to find myself. Around that time is when I found Marshall. And so I was going through what I consider to be my dark places or my dark moments, not because I was doing drugs or anything like that. Except I was lost up here and I was lost in just what I wanted to do. I was in that transition moment, right? Of being able to. And
also, so let me get some clarity as well. You have a child.
I do.
And boy or girl?
It's a girl.
Girl. And so did you have custody of her during all of this?
I did.
So that's another layer that I think is important, because there are a lot of people who, maybe right now hearing your story and can relate and go, oh yeah, I'd like to make that transition and I'm, all of that. And then they go, yeah, but I've got a child and they start sharing some, some stories as to, why they are unable to make that transition. And I just want to also, add that layer that while you're doing all this, you're also, you have that additional leverage of taking a leap, and it's not just like the short term. You have things to consider. You have a child that you're raising, and taking care of, and all that. So I just wanted to be sure that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you know what? And I'm gonna go back a little bit because I think this is a pretty good content too. I was 15 and a half, just being here 5.5 years in the States. I was 15 and a half. I say we, but it wasn't we, it was her. We got pregnant. right? 15 and a half, we got pregnant. I had my daughter when I was 16. And I remember that moment as if it was yesterday. And I remember telling my daughter's mom at that time, I said, you know what? I am going to do whatever it takes to make sure that my daughter does not have to go through the things that I went through as a kid. In other words, I want to make sure that my daughter has birthday parties. I want to make sure that my daughter has toys. I want to make sure that my daughter does not have to work the way I did as a kid. And that, again, going through that at 16 and a half, I was a kid having a kid.
Yeah.
Yet I said, I got to continue to take care of my academics, because, again, my family was very big on academics. And I did. I had all AP classes. At one point, I couldn't do it anymore. So I had to drop all my AP classes because it was just so much to do. And so I was doing that. And then I started working. I would get up early in the morning, 6 a.m, take the bus about an hour to get to school, get out of school, take another bus to go an hour to go work at a mall, then work all the way to 11:30, come home, do my homework. I did that day in and day out. And again, the point that I'm trying to make here is that I could have said, you know what, screw school, I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to go rob, or I'm going to try to figure out to make money in different means. For me was, no, I'm going to go the hard way. I like this quote by Les Brown. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. I did a lot of the things that were really, really, really hard, yet it's paying off, because I'm so proud of my daughter now, where she graduated, has her bachelor's degree. She's working at a really good job at Nike, doing all these different things. Like, as a matter of fact, she actually co-authored in one of my first books, and has an amazing story too, which I was so proud as a father. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, having my daughter and myself in one of my books that was bestseller, like that is amazing. Nevertheless, taking that experience and everything that I've gone through, when I decided to take my leap, is like, I'm doing this not just for me. I'm doing this because I want to continue to provide a better life for my daughter. Oftentimes people ask, what is your why? What is your motivation? What is your inspiration? For me, it was beyond me. It was not just about me, because I had a good life in terms of traveling all over the place, making good money, what considers to be good money. And it wasn't really about that. It was about just having a good time. Yet my health wasn't the greatest. My stress levels were up the roof. I felt like I was a walking bomb. Like, every time we'll go get checked for my how I'm doing and all that stuff, is like, dude, you're like high cholesterol. The good one is bad. The bad one is bad. It's like you're about to blow up, kind of thing. And I said, well, it took me 7 months to finally do it. And when I did, I felt this sense of relief. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to venture out 100% into real estate. That's what I was doing at that time.
As an investor or an agent?
Yeah. No, an investor. I was flipping properties, doing that. And then through that journey, it's amazing how you start discovering more things. And I learned a few things, and I talk about it in my very first book. And what I talk about is, I had to, Jim Brown says, for things to change, you have to change. So I changed a lot of things. I don't watch any of this BS politics, and nothing against that. I don't watch TV anymore. There's so many negative programs, as you know. What you put in your mind is what's going to be portrayed out into the universe. And so I stopped watching the news. I stopped watching things that were not serving me. I started reading, something that I didn't do in the past. I started doing affirmations. I started listening to audio podcasts or audiobooks. Like, I literally changed 100%. I made a change on a lot of those things.
And how long ago was that?
This was probably about, I started that journey maybe about 40 years ago, 3 to 4 years. Yeah. And so I went through all of that to rediscover myself and said, okay, this is my new path. And through that, I realized that, hey, what about if I write a story? What about if I write my memoir of who I am and all everything that I've gone through? And I talk myself out of it. We oftentimes do this. Mm-hmm. We have all these voices in our head, and in my head, it was telling me, Cesar, you're not a writer. Cesar, you don't know, you don't like to read. Who are you kidding? No one's gonna buy your product. Who is this for? And then I talked myself out of it. And I said, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm not a writer. I'm not gonna do this. And I gave up. 2 months later, I changed the frame. I changed how I saw it. And I'm like, so what if I'm not a writer? So what if nobody, reads or buys my book? What about if I do it because I want a self-accomplishment? What about if I do it because I want to leave something for my daughter so that she can remember who her dad was? When I change that frame, when I look at things differently, just like anything else we do in life, then you start understanding and seeing that you can do things way better, and you're actually gonna follow through. And I did.
Did you do that on your own, or is that when you started? Was that a product of your investing in yourself in the personal development sense?
Yeah, that was part of that. It was during that journey. I was already a full-time entrepreneur, and it was through that moment of self-development, doing a lot of networking, and just kind of getting that. And I think that's also huge when you hang around with different kinds of people. Your level of vibration, the way you're thinking is like, it starts giving you ideas. And I'm like, what? I should write a book, you know? And so I did that through that journey. And sure enough, I created a target plan. I don't call them goals. I call them target plans. So I created myself a target plan and said, I want to be published by this date. And so through that, I kind of went backwards and say, okay, if I want to have my book by this date, I need to write X amount of pages per day. I'm old fashioned, so I typed them. Mm-hmm. And so I have to
on a typewriter.
No. I mean, I was at my computer, on my work. And so I said, I need to write X amount of pages per day. And I did that. And guess what, man? When you create that definite plan, that purpose, you can get things done. I finished my book 2 months prior, and my book got published 2 months prior. After it got published, I'm like, again, it was just for me. Yet seeing the people that ended up getting the books, and people that I didn't even think of, giving me their comments and their compliments, and some of their reviews were amazing. I was getting messages from people that I never met, and they're saying, listening to your story and going through your story have changed my life. I got one kid, he's probably now 17, maybe 18. At that time, he was like 15. And he said, wow, I'm seeing my life through you right now, and how you went through going to jail and going through all this and having a kid at an early age and crossing the board, all this stuff. I'm like, wow, you've changed my point of view in many different things, and you have inspired me. And then that's when when it clicked, I'm like, I need to do more of this. I want to inspire people. And for me, my highest intention is to be able to do that. How can I serve? Zig Ziglar says, when you give enough people what you want, you're going to get everything that you want. So how can I serve? How can I give more? Right. And so that's been my journey.
Dude, that's so powerful. And I love how well read you are, that you're able to, like, it's obviously you're living. It's not like you've just read some of this stuff, but you're living it. You're applying it. It wasn't shelf help, right? Where you did there. And that's important, because there are a lot of people, and we've all been guilty of it at some point. I mean, you've shared it. I'm sure you've purchased a book and put it on the shelf. Oh, it's going to be great. You get home and then squirrel, right? Yep, exactly. And you just, life shows up, and that's brilliant. So we'll jump around a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit about, if you'd be willing to share about, what happened, and that you lost so much control that you created a situation where you ended up doing time. Like, what was that? How did you, when you look back at it, obviously I'm sure you figured out where the point was, that there was no return, and how to prevent yourself from doing that again, clearly. But what happened, and what impact did that have?
Yeah, you know what? It had a huge impact. So I think part of it, and kind of looking back now, again, growing up, coming to the States, not having a father figure up until the age of 10, really, I guess part of it was, and I'm not blaming that, I'm just trying to put things into perspective. It was, again, I didn't have a father figure, so I didn't know how to be, I guess, a man in terms of controlling your temper or being able to treat people in certain way. And so for me, I was always a very angry person, right? Again, coming to the States, not fitting in, I was fighting, arguing with people, getting to all these kind of arguments, and leading up into like my early 20s, my daughter's mom, we just got into so many arguments, and several times. And then one of them was a really, really bad, heated argument that I take full responsibility. And I don't condemn anyone ever doing this. Yet for me, at that moment in my life, I'm not that person anymore. Yet at that time, I just ended up beating her. And so that led me to a really bad situation where my brother's wife at that time, they were staying with us, called the cops on me. And I'm glad she did. I mean, I did so much damage to my daughter's mom and my daughter being there that that obviously then ended up me being in jail. And I remember that, and I'm like, wow, what the F did I do, right? And being locked up for several days, seeing your life being ripped off. I mean, I've worked so hard to this point. I've done so many different things to stay focused, to graduate with honors, to go to college, to do all these different things, to be in jail. And luckily, and thank God, my daughter's mom dropped the charges, although it was evident that she should have never done that. She dropped the charges. I came out, nothing, no charges for me. And I knew at that moment that I have lost my daughter's mom, and also lost seeing my daughter every day, because my daughter was gonna go live with her. And so it was about 5 days that I was in jail, give and take. The day before I got released, we're gonna have a family trip to Mexico, as my parents were gonna renew their wedding vows. And I didn't think I was gonna make it. That was gonna be a huge moment for my parents, and I wanted to be there. I'm glad I did. My daughter's mom flew with us too, because she was part of it. She flew, yet after the wedding, she flew back to the States, and then I stayed behind 7 days with my daughter. And I already knew, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna enjoy this moment. I'm gonna enjoy the 7 days with my daughter, give her whatever I can, because once I go back to the States, the reality is going to sink in. And sure enough, it did. I came, and my daughter's mom moved out of our place, took my daughter, and then that was just another one of those major hits for me. And I'm like, you know what, I cannot. This cannot be me. I have to change this. And I started working on myself, and I started doing different things, and started staying focused on my work. A little bit after that, I went back and got my bachelor's, and I started continuing to work on myself constantly. Yet I lost a lot, for sure.
So how did you do that? Because as I'm sure you've seen, and we've all seen people who oftentimes when a thing like that happens, they can just throw their hands up and give up. And, that's it. All is lost. Screw it. I might as well just, give up. And people do it for less than what you experience, because clearly you're a very loving man. You have, morals, you have, obviously you made mistakes, and you've and by the way, everyone does. Right. But that, to then go, I was just imagining it. While you were sharing that story, I'm thinking, my daughter's 7, and I'm going, I don't know how I'd recover for myself to violate my value system so much, to then create that environment and have, my daughter's it's in such conflict of my internal thing. And I would just, the pain I was feeling going, I don't know how I'd recover.
Yeah.
So that's so telling and so incredible. And I think, it shows possibility that it doesn't matter how bad things get. Mm-hmm. You can turn it around, or, and there you go, turning point. We'll talk about Marshall, but
yeah.
So, but talk about that. At that time, how there had to have been times when you had a case of the Effets. There had to have been moments where you were like, what am I going to do? Where did you find that faith, that certainty, that, and how far along? Sounds like this is before you were deep into your personal development journey.
Oh, way before that. Yeah, so, I was about 22.
Yeah, that's huge. How did you do that? What?
Yeah, I think part of it, there's a couple of different elements. The first one is just spending that 1 week with my daughter. And I always go back to that. I think many of the things that I do is because of my daughter, being able to make sure that I can provide and give. Just spend that 1 week with her. It really, really, let me see things from a different perspective. I didn't want to miss out on any of that. And I knew that I had to make changes so that when I went back to the States, I can still have that me and my daughter moment. Otherwise, that would have changed. So I think that was a big, big aspect of that. The second thing was I had to look deep down in myself and said, not only have I let myself down. I led my mom, my dad, my daughter, my daughter's mom, my friend, everybody. I've let so many different people down, and I'm like, this is not me. You have to recognize and realize that in that heat of the moment, you might be one person. That's why I go back to the point that I mentioned earlier, is like, the decisions and choices that we make today will determine the quality of life that you have tomorrow. So you have to go back and think about it more than once. And so for me, it's like, I have to look deep down and say, no, this is not the life that I want. It wasn't easy. I mean, for sure it wasn't easy. Coming back and seeing her leaving, and only having my daughter once a week, and then finally having her, every other weekend, and then once a week. All of that was very challenging. I had a lot of moments where I felt lonely. I felt like, what's the purpose, right? And yet I went back to that. The purpose is that I have to take care of my daughter, because that's the promise that I made to her when she was born. And I cannot do that if I'm not a good father. I cannot do that if I'm, falling apart, or if I'm not following through with different things. I have to be that example for her. And so for me, it was those two things. It's like looking deep down and understanding that I had a really good week. That week that I was there. I'm looking at some stuff right now that she made when I was there. I have them here in my office that she made during that 1 week. I have a picture of her when we're taking a moment, over there. And these are the things that remind me. I mean, we're talking about, she was probably 4 or something like that. So we're talking about 21 years, and I still have them here, and I cherish them, because those are the things that kind of took me out of it. What is your why? What is your purpose? What do you want to do as you continue to get out of that? And you keep coming back to that and understanding that even though we're having these down moments, you have to realize that at the end of the day, is whatever it is that brings you joy, do more of that, so that you don't get stuck and go down the wrong path. And that's what I did. And luckily, I didn't go into drugs or gangs or any of that, or even get into alcohol, any of that. It was at one point I was definitely depressed. I definitely was, feeling lonely. Yet I kept going back to it, and seeing my daughter once a week was more than enough at that moment.
Wow. I mean, that's so powerful. It's so impressive, even at that young age, that you were able to do that, because most 22-year-olds don't even have that sense of self where they're able to see the outcome that could happen in the future, because, we're unfortunately even more today than ever before conditioned into, the now, like being the present and all that. Yeah, I get that. And your present is still going to be following you. So think about how are you going to set yourself up for future present moments, right, that are going to be bringing even more joy, even more of that. And that's, that's the dance of being human with a timeline, and appreciating that there is going to be consequences, good or bad, right, for our present activities. So do you talk about this with your daughter now? Does it ever come up as like,
I don't think I ever talked to her about it. I don't think I have, to be honest with you. I think it's one of those things we kind of just left. I mean, it's there. She knows. I mean, we all know it. But I've never talked about it. I think it's still a sensitive subject, more for her, not so much for me. I think just because I've done so much work on myself that I've been able to see the good in everything, right? And again, I've taken the other thing too, by the way, everything that I've done, the biggest thing is you got to take full responsibility. Like one of the first things that we got to do as human beings to be able to move forward, whether it's your fault or not, it doesn't matter. You just got to take responsibility and acknowledge what took place. Once you can take responsibility, acknowledge, and have that acceptance, then you can really step out of that and into something bigger and greater, right? Yeah. And so it doesn't matter whose fault it was, just take responsibility. And so for me, I've taken full responsibility of all my actions. And to me, at least for me, it has given me the ability to be able to speak about it and be able to move forward.
Well, so right there, I mean, that's the transition from victim to victor, is personal responsibility. And it's like, to your point, it doesn't matter like what the circumstances were around it. There's always going to be a complex web of situations, contexts, and opportunities that can be used to justify or explain or rationalize the behavior. And you said it yourself, like, well, I didn't have, and you said, look, I'm not making an excuse. my model at the time, I didn't have a dad, I didn't have a model, and no one ever taught me how to manage my rage. And I'm not, you're not justifying it, just that was a situation. So instead of blaming it, you said I had to take personal responsibility and say, what's my role in this? What can I do to improve the man I am such that I can not do that again? And more importantly, perhaps help others to not go down that path by being an exemplar of possibility rather than a justification of the behavior. And that's really powerful. And I wonder as well that your daughter, since you can't change what happened, obviously,
right,
also because of the everything you've done since, you've proven what an ideal man is, a value system, taking personal responsibility, that, that it's going to help her have very high standard of what she's willing to allow in her life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, part of that too is like, again, once I took that responsibility, I'm really good friends with her mom. I've always been, even, maybe not the first couple of years because we were going through that transition, right? I would say, by the time I was 25, we were really good friends, and we've been really good friends since then. And to my daughter's mom, and even my daughter and I, we are very, very close. We're very, very close in many different aspects. And so I think it goes back to that is being able to have the ability to work together and to do things together. And sometimes back in the day, people will be asking us like, you get along with her, you go out with her, you're doing things together. I'm like, why wouldn't I? It's for the better good of our relationship and my daughter. And I actually talk about this in my book. It's like, I don't understand when people have this idea of, I'm not getting along with you, and then there's kids involved, and then they stay together because of the kids, because they want to take care of the kids. They're together miserable, yet not realizing that they're making that situation even harder. Or they separate and they don't talk, and they're always arguing, and then the one that continues to suffer is the kid. At the end of the day, you go back to that, and I just don't understand the concept, because again, I didn't do any of that. Even realizing what I went through with my daughter's mom, I've always looked at, how can I help? How can I serve? How can I be there for my daughter and for her, even though I made all these different things that couldn't happen. And to this day, we have that bond. And so I think that's probably a message for couples, is that whether you're together or not and there's a kid involved, your priority should be your kid, and then everything else is going to fall through.
Amen, brother. So let's move into, let's talk about Marshall, passion, profit, and power. So how did you get into, like, was Marshall one of your earlier personal development gurus, as it were? I hate using that word, but mentors, because I know you work directly with them now. But like, how did you find? Was Marshall you first, or like what brought you to personal development? Yeah,
so I was already doing real estate investing. I had already invested into a couple of programs back in the day. I think at that time it was with my ex of 10 years. We were watching the home shopping HGTV, I think. I forget where they build houses. Mm-hmm. Anyways, we were watching that program, and she's like, hey, we should go to, there's going to be an event here in LA. We should go and check it out. And I said, yeah, maybe. I wasn't too happy with it because I had already invested in real estate in 2005, 6, and 7 on my own. So I started my I guess, entrepreneurial journey early on while I was working. And in 2007, 8, and 9, I had a couple of houses, rental properties out here in LA, and I was doing good. Yet I didn't get no mentor. I didn't get nobody. I was doing everything on my own. And I felt like I got it. I'm 25, 26, 27. I had multiple houses. I'm good. Nobody was teaching me. And then sure enough, with the 2008 crash and 2009 crash, well, I went with it. I foreclosed. I lost all my properties, and it was like I had to get out. I lost, 10 years of bad credit and all that stuff. And so fast forward, I think it was 2013 or between 2013 and 2016. My girlfriend at the time was like, "Hey, we should go to this event." And right away, that the negative experience that I had came into play, and I'm like, I don't know if I should. I already had bad experience with real estate. I lost it all. We went and we ended up buying a program into how to become a flipper, and so on. So we started doing that, and I enjoyed it. I think it was 2016, maybe. There was a real estate wealth expo in Los Angeles. So Tony Robbins, Marshall Silver, a bunch of speakers. There was probably about 10,000 people at that place. I went there for some of the speakers that were going to be speaking on real estate. It was a real estate wealth expo, right? So I'm doing real estate, and at that time I didn't know who was Marshall. You never heard of him before. Yet I saw his hypnotic show the day before, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. It was entertaining. I had fun. I enjoyed it. I'm like, this is fun. I definitely got to see it. And then at the end, he's like, by the way, I'm going to be teaching you this tomorrow, for the first 2 hours or whatever. I'm going to be teaching this. Make sure you're here. And I'm like, you know what? I enjoy the show. It was very funny. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it. And I'm like, I got to be here for the what he's going to be teaching. There's going to be some great stuff. And sure enough, I enjoyed it. That was, I think he calls the missing piece to millions. I really enjoyed that program. And then he said, by the way, I have you can buy a Turning Point ticket that's going to be taking place in 2 weeks. And it's a 3-day event. And I said, I have to learn from this guy. Mm-hmm. I love the show. I love what he was teaching. I have to buy his Turning Point. Mind you, I was there for real estate and looking for real estate, people. Although I don't know if you've ever been to one of those, except it's all kinds of people. You had Pitbull, you had Sylvester Stallone, different types of speakers. And so I went to a Turning Point, and I was like, wow, I was blown away. And I'm like, I need to learn more from this guy. And so then I bought into his mastermind, Inner Circle. And then since then, I've been working with the guy, and I've been learning a lot from him. And now I work with him. Yeah.
Yeah. Marshall's great friend, and just he's hilarious too. Like, just as a dude, he's just a fun guy to hang with. And to your point around those events. So as I'm a real estate investor as well, and but what we know is, and I speak at real estate events all the time, is that the technique of real estate is pretty simple. Like, if you just go through it, it's really a numbers game. You find the one that you like, if you like flipping or buying holds, or if you want to do, multis, if you're it really doesn't matter what specifically you're doing. There is a formula to doing it. Where the magic is the mindset. Right. It's that it's simple. It's just not easy. There's a lot of emotions tied around it. There's a lot of fears that could be around it. You've got, to your point, there are people who lost everything in 08 and 09, and they never went back because that fear is still there. It's still there. It's like they've got PTSD from it, and they're like, I'm not going back down that path. So that's why at those events, you'll always see Marshall and Tony and, Sylvester Stallone, Pitbull, all these other people sharing their mindset on how to be successful, i.e. the real deal on success. What happens is you find out that you are your most important asset in your business. You need to take personal responsibility. You need to recognize the fears when they come up, and maybe they're not fear, maybe it's stress or trepidation or what have you. But by being in an environment of personal growth, of personal development, you then become the person necessary to achieve, to go after, to break through, to overcome, to work around all of the obstacles that are going to be there, because that's just life, right? I mean, that's, I think, the sad truth that maybe you've experienced this as well. There are some people who almost have an expectation that things should be easy. And that, that someone should hand it to them, that there's because, and just because I deserve it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And, we all, and it also, I think maybe, and maybe it's more this, maybe it's not just that in level of entitlement. as much as it's taking it for granted when you have it.
I think so too. And part of that, seeing it, a lot of people do feel entitled to that. I should have this, I should have that. And I forget who said this. And it's like, everybody wants the goal, yet nobody's willing to work for it. Right. And so you got to be able to put in the hard work. You got to be able to put in the hours and the time and all that stuff. And I know when I was doing corporate America, I would come home, and instead of sitting on the couch, I was working on my real estate business, and I was doing that. And again, once I felt like I was in a level where I can leave my job, that's when I decided to do it. And don't get me wrong, since then to now, I still had a lot of ups and downs, and I had to reinvent myself. And I lost a lot of money in real estate, just like many people have. And I've made money. It's one of those things. And so it's not an easy. Let me take it back. It's easy. It's just different, right? It's a lot different how you go about it. And I do agree with you. I think that anybody can teach you the to-dos, the principles, the here's how you comp a property, whatever that might be. It's the mindset though, that if you don't have that, it doesn't matter what I teach you, you're not gonna get it, right? You're gonna give up when you first make that call and somebody says, no, I'm not gonna sell you my house, or you pick up the phone and they curse you out and tell you you're this and that, and I've gone through all of that, or they hang up on you, and you're like, now you feel like they were doing it directly to you when they were not really doing it directly to you, right? You have to have that mindset for sure.
Yeah. So how did your life start changing when you started diving deeper into that personal development? And, obviously Marshall teaches a lot of, hypnosis and NLP, and it's all about, certainty, right? And that's a state, right? It's all that state of confidence and certainty and belief in yourself. What started to shift for you when you started immersing yourself in that environment?
Yeah, I think for me, a couple of things. Number one, I started seeing things differently. I started seeing things from a different point of view. And what I mean by that is that you have one view of a particular aspect, right? And I think Marshall talks about this too. It's like, we can have the same situation, and the victim is going to see this like, I cannot do this, I'm a failure, so on and so forth. The victor is going to see this, how can I make this happen, right? And you start seeing things from a different perspective. You start thinking differently than, I guess, the common person will look at it, instead of giving up. And I think when you start looking at it from that perspective, you have more options. And so for me now, is like, if I have something that I really want to do, is like, who can I talk to? Who can I reach out to? What do I have available right now in front of me that can help me make this happen? How can I make that happen? Versus before is like, well, I don't have the means. I don't have the means to do this. I'm afraid, whatever the case may be. And so I've learned through the process that I cannot allow the fear to take away the opportunity that's in front of me, even if the opportunity is not in a shiny object or it looks ugly, because a lot of times it does, right? The opportunity is not pretty. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not. And those opportunities come and they go by so fast, and we got to be able to see that opportunity and take it, even if you're fearful. And so that's the one thing, right? The other thing is, I think part of it is just really hanging around with different people. Like, I think that's huge in terms of that self-development and doing things differently. I feel more confident for sure if I'm hanging around with the people that have this state of mind of success or doing more, not settling in, versus, hey, let's go out to the bar and drink every day, or let's go out and watch a game. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying every day there's something wrong with that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so there's a different state of mind for that. And so for me, we're talking about this right before we joined this. I was at the event this past weekend with Marshall Silver, and in 3 days. I missed that. It was pretty good. I connected with a lot of different people, some real estate investors, some people that might want to jump on my next book. Like, I did a lot of connections, and that brings me joy. And so to me, that's huge. I also believe that you're going to end up losing people through your journey, right? And I think it was Les Brown again. He said, it gets lonely on the top because it's the bottom that's overcrowded. And it's true. As you're going up, yeah, there's a lot less people yet the people that are there are the people that really count. At the bottom, you can find so many different pigeons, but there's only so many different eagles.
Yeah, eagles don't soar with pigeons unless they're eating them.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so true. I mean, I've got a thing called the mentor mind, which is essentially a mastermind for that very purpose, right? Bringing people in who their purpose is to learn, to grow, and serve, to add value. So just like when you go to these events, you're meeting people who are flying the eagles, right? They're up here, they're committed, they're willing to do whatever it takes. They don't have a mindset of gimme, gimme, gimme. It's like, how can I add? How can I serve? I'm feeding myself so that I can return. I've never been to an event in the personal development space that adding value, that contributing to helping others wasn't ultimately the primary mission. Mm-hmm. And that the idea is that all personal development events, and there's only so many ways you draw a square, right? We're all kind of sharing very similar stuff, is the idea of, you put the mask on yourself first so that you can put the mask on your, the person you're with and so forth. And I see so many challenges around people buying into that because, like you shared, now we have all the people down there, all the pigeons, and they get connection, right? So then they're like, oh, easy for that guy, and then they commiserate with each other because it's easier to do that than to step out, because what'll happen is, and you shared it, you've lost some friends, I'm sure, because of your level of success. Mm-hmm. Not because of your political stance, not because of your past, not because of that, but because you're doing stuff, and they may blame other stuff. Right. But the truth is, they don't feel connected anymore because they aren't on the same train as you. They are not out there, getting the results, doing whatever it takes, raising your standards, and they go, oh, that's going to be uncomfortable. That's going to be all that. And I mean, we see it all the time. And again, the reason why I do this and have these conversations is to show people that it wasn't an overnight success. Right. It wasn't, you didn't get this because you were entitled to it. Your success is not because you're entitled, other than you are enjoying the positive consequences of all the other decisions and the hard work and the tough choices that you had to make in order to have the success that you have now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wish people, and I'll give you a great example, and maybe I don't know if we talked about it when I was on your show, but as an example, I'm sure you've seen this. Like right now, I don't know how many people are tuned in or watching this because we're not going, F this guy, screw that guy, and all this. Right, exactly. Right? We're talking about like, hey, let's show you how you can improve your life by being a leader, by moving from victim to victor, from worrier to warrior. And yet, like Tony Robbins years ago, he had a show called Breakthrough. Do you remember? I don't know if you knew about this.
Yeah.
Aired twice. No one tuned in. Why? Because it wasn't full of drama. It wasn't full of pain. It was like a positive message. It was like, hey, anything's possible. Well, if more people are showing what's possible, all the people who are going, that's impossible, gimme, 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 don't have that anymore. So of course they're not going to tune in because they're going to be reminded of the fact that they're not doing what they need to do. They're too busy blaming and playing a victim. And, well, it's the economy, it's the government, it's the this, it's the that. And then they hang around in a vacuum of people who are going, yeah, that's right. What advice do you have? And do you see it differently? And if so, what's your thought on that? And then what advice would you have for someone who is perhaps at one of those stages that you were in where you could have gone down a case of the efforts? You've lost everything. You lost everything in 2008. You lost everything potentially when, you came in, after your incident. And I'm sure there are plenty of other situations where you've had to, get out of your own way. What advice would you have for someone right now who is ready to start changing their life and move from victim to victor?
Yeah, so that definitely the first thing is realizing, and it reminds me of everything you're talking about. It reminds me of the drama cycle, right? And in the drama cycle, we have the perpetrator, we have the rescuer, and we have the victim. At any given point, 95 or 99% of the people are in one of those different categories. We're either the victim, we're the perpetrator, or we're the rescuer. We're rescuing somebody. And so first, I think you got to realize where are you in that drama cycle, and how much longer do you want to be in that drama cycle? And what I mean by that is that you got to be able to step out of that. Don't be the victim. Don't be the rescuer. Don't be the perpetrator. You got to be. I was every one of those things. I was the perpetrator when I landed in jail. I've been the victim of, when I'm like, why me? Why me? Why did this have to happen to me? Why did I have to have? By the way, I think when I took my leap of faith, I was a couple of years back. Never had I experienced anxiety or panic attacks ever in my life. And I think part of that is because of the transition. And at one point I'm thinking to myself, why me? I'm trying to do good things. One of my worst panic attacks that I've ever had in my life, it was New Year's 2018 or 2019. And I was actually serving the homeless. And in the middle of that, my world came down and I ended up in the ER. And I'm thinking to myself, why me? I'm trying to do good here. I'm not doing nothing bad. Why me? I was a victim, right? We all go through that. And so I think realizing where you're falling into that and realizing that you don't want to be part of that anymore. You got to be able to start changing the framing and the way you see things and step out of that drama cycle and see it from the outside point of view. And so I think the first thing is, again, going back to what we talked about, is taking full responsibility, accepting whatever that may be, acknowledge whatever's taking place, and accepting that for things to change, you have to change. So you have to see, what do I need to change in whatever I'm going through, whether it's a business, whether it's a relationship, whether it's, my personal development. What do I need to do to become 1% better? I always tell myself that I'm trying to become 1% better than who I was yesterday. And so I have different habits that I do to help me with that. And a lot of that is really just what we're talking about, being grateful, being accepting, what I did yesterday and realizing that tomorrow's going to be a better day. I wake up today, every day, and I said, you know what, today's going to be a great day. I already started my day with intentions, and realizing that and working through that and saying, you know what, I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be a perpetrator. I don't want to be a rescuer. I don't want to disable people. If anything, I'm going to enable them. I'm going to empower people, which is different than rescuing people. I want to empower people by giving them the tools or the opportunity to have a better life. And so I guess my best relationship advice is make sure that you're not cheating on your future with your past. A lot of people get hung up on the past, and unfortunately that is gone. Again, it is a experience. It is an educational experience. You have to extract the lessons so that you can focus on the now, today, the moment, right now, it counts. And then plan for the future. Don't live on the future though. Plan for the future based on that. Except, again, a lot of people are cheating on their future with their past because they're living in the past.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that also we may notice is the idea of rescuing sounds somewhat attractive to some. Like someone would go, well, okay, if I'm going to be any of those three, I'm at least going to be a rescuer. But the challenge with that, as opposed to your distinction, is that oftentimes people who are rescuing in the name of rescuing become a new perpetrator. And in order to then think that someone needs to be rescued, you have to then be a victim of the reason why you want to rescue is because you're being victimized by whatever situation is, and that your role, that you have some role of victimhood. You're attached to that victimization, and then you go out and perpetrate the people who victimized, and that's that cycle. And I think that we need to really step outside of that, like to your point, because this is how the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Someone thinks they're going in, I'm only helping.
Right.
And what they're doing is they're cutting someone else down rather than empowering them and, helping them realize that they can solve and they take their own personal responsibility, solve their own problems, as opposed to continuing to blame or trying to stop someone else from creating that environment. Well, no, step back. Like that's a choice too. So there's such an interesting conversation around that because, and this is where maybe when I think taking God out of the conversation, taking morals out of the conversation, taking all of that is where it's had a problem. Because I think that, this isn't a religion conversation, but there are some lessons in there, like teach a man to fish. Mm-hmm. Feed them for life. Give them a fish. Now they're going to be going, hey, where's my next fish? And there are valuable lessons it seems like a lot of these conversations about taking, whether it be God or capitalism or whatever, is basically taking out personal responsibility and putting in a form of reliance and entitlement and absolving people of personal responsibility. And, I don't know the answer other than if people would, continue to do their own personal growth, and accept possibility rather than expect, someone to solve their problems.
Right. And part of that too is again, you got to be able to realize that you are here for a purpose. We all have a purpose, and it might take, a year, 2, 10 years to find that purpose. My point to that is that, again, not a religious conversation, except, whether you believe in God or the universe or that greater power, whatever that might be for you, realize that the fact that you're listening to this right now, that you're watching us, you're getting this message, there's a purpose. That bigger power is not done with you, which means that you still have an opportunity to make a shift, to make that change, to pivot, to have your turning point, to have something that can help you in your journey, right? And again, a lot of times we take that for granted. There's a few things that I believe come to us at zero cost, and we underutilize them. Number one is our brain, our mind is so powerful. It can make us or it can break us. Right. The other thing is time. We feel like, I know for me, when I was in my 20s, I'm like, I have plenty of time. Well, as I'm getting older, I'm like, no, I don't have plenty of time. I got to make the best of today, because we are here today and we are gone tomorrow. And so again, when you start looking at life from a different perspective, I think there's so many different opportunities that are going to come into your life. And so again, going back to the mind, and one of the books that I talk about is You Can Overcome Anything When You Exercise the Mind. And is that what kind of programs, what are you doing? What are you feeding your mind to be able to help you in that journey, right? And so when you start taking those things that came to you at zero cost, you can definitely make a lot of different headway in your life.
Amen, brother. So with that being said, what are you working on now? How can people connect with you? What is the opportunity to work more with Cesar?
Yeah, definitely. So right now I'm working. I have a plan of doing 2 more books before the end of the year. So I'm working on that. And so anybody that wants to become a published author either on their own, I can definitely help them with that. Or if they want to be they want to collaborate on one of my books, again, they're best international seller, they can also do that. And then obviously I'm very active on the real estate and also on the mind and life coaching, or, as you know, networking events. So anyone that wants any of that, they can definitely reach out to me. And the best way that people can get a hold of me is through my name, Cesar R Espino, on either Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, or my website is CesarRespino.com. Make sure you put the R in the middle, because if you just put Cesar Espino, it's somebody else.
And it's Cesar without an A. It's just Cesar.
SAR. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep.
I'll put all that in the comments and everywhere. So when anyone is, if you're watching, listening to this, it's in the comment section to connect with Cesar. So, dude, any final thoughts before we let you go on to the rest of your busy day?
I would say whatever it is that you're going through, again, going back to just take some time to surrender, take some time to realize it, take some time to acknowledge that, and then just take some action on making yourself 1% better than who you were yesterday. And just keep going back to that idea and creating some habits. Tony Robbins refers to them as rituals, having some rituals that are going to help you really step out of your comfort zone, because we grow on pain, and we grow when we're going in our uncomfort.
Love it, brother. Well, thank you so much for sharing your most valuable asset, your time, your wisdom, and your energy. I love you for who you are and who you aren't. I look forward to more rock with you in the future.
Yes, thank you so much, Doug.
All right. God bless you. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Peace. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging with us. And remember to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast right here. And we look forward to serving you even more. Remember, download your free guided hypnotic meditation at guidedhypnotic.com. That's guidedhypnotic.com, where you'll get your free anxiety-busting meditation. We look forward to serving you, and if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to reach out. All right, we love you for who you are and who you aren't. God bless.